Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming tonight. And those of you who are at home, I'm sure we're either going to view it later or this evening live. So I'd also like to recognize the administration that comes here every meeting to give us support to, especially they stick around a little bit if you have any questions afterwards. So if anybody has any questions, we have a special services director here, and we have, we just saw the high school principal and stuff. So we're here again, and I think it's important that we say this because we're talking about transparency, right? Again, we love throwing that word around, and I think that we try to do the best we can as an administration here to be as transparent as possible, and I think you'll see that tonight in this budget presentation. I want to thank the board before I start. I want to thank the board for another incredible budget process, especially our executive team and also our finance chair, Ms. Daddis, and the finance committee who have been beating me over the head over the past week and a half or 2 weeks. Mr. Palladino also did a phenomenal job. And we'll get to some of those particulars in a few minutes. And I know you're all eager to see some of the numbers that we've been scrubbing for the past month. And we're going to talk about some of the process and some of the things that you've been thinking about and some of the things you've been seeing or hearing or whatnot. And I think we cleared up some of that. Like I promised at the workshop, I said we're going to clear up some of that next week. Well, here we are. So, and then, of course, it's a hearing, so we'll take your hearing comments afterwards, and then on the agenda tonight, the board has this proposed budget to vote on, so hopefully they'll support it, because I really do think it's a solid budget. So I hit the button one time, Jeff, and it didn't work, so I'm just saying. So here's the overview. Again, nothing, not too many, I throw a few new slides in here or there for some of the new things that we have, some underfunded mandates. You hold on to it. I'm gonna give you a thumbs up when we're ready. Some underfunded mandates, some different things that are happening in district. But, it's infrastructure. It should be transparent, so it should be just a skeleton, right? It should be the same thing every year. This is not something that has bells and whistles or whatnot. This is a budget. This is our children. This is our community. This is your tax dollar. It's supposed to be antiseptic. Okay, so it does have the same backbone. I'm going to go over the district goals, the enrollment assumptions, which are a little different this year, pretty interesting. School level goals, again, special education needs and costs, and we're doing an incredible job, but those costs are rising, the numbers are rising, we're identifying more kids, especially post-COVID, with some SEL problems, et cetera. Technology, facilities, infrastructure, revenue projections, the appropriations, which are always a fun slide. The below adequacy spending, which is, it's reality. Administrative costs and the tax impact, which is the drum roll please, right? How good did we do over the past month after the technical review? And now let me get to that. So welcome to Budgeting 101, right? A couple years ago, we went over some of the numbers and some of the financial and the fiscal stuff, but that's more for administrative stuff. Some people gave me some feedback saying, it was a little too technical. We can always call you for that. So let's just talk about some of the big things out there. So let's talk about the process. Right, for those of you who don't know how this works, maybe you're new, maybe it's your first time here, maybe you're hearing things, I got to get involved. So why don't you learn about the process? It's very simple. Pre-budget, stakeholders, the DOE regulations, all these things that we talk about, we come together and we put together our needs for the board. And we talk about it in committees, and we talk about it in administrative council meetings. And, we see what are some underfunded mandates. There are no unfunded mandates in New Jersey, just so you know, it's not allowed. But there are definitely underfunded mandates. Let me give you one. You ready? HIB, right? Harassment, intimidation, bullying, way underfunded. So we talk about that. Some of the district needs, that's going to be on some of the next slides you're going to see. Again, some of those mandates we just talked about. And then after that, we put it together. We see how much you can stretch the tax levy. We see how much aid we have. We see how much revenues we're projecting, all these things. And then it goes for a technical review. All right, a technical review. And that was approximately a month ago. All right? So numbers we had a month ago are not the same as numbers now. All right? As we crunch things, as we find things, different things that happen. To get to the technical review, to get it to the county office, we really stretch it as far as we can. And that's what you saw at the workshop last week, I guess, right? It was last week. That's what you saw. You only saw, and we were only speaking to the technical review. And I made that pretty clear, and that's okay. And a lot of districts do it this way. Some districts do it differently. This is how we've always done it here because we have a second level of review. We have a state review because we have a monitor. It's a whole second level of review for this. So in the technical review, we consider the needs and the mandates, et cetera, the tax levy, and some of the revenues, et cetera. Then we here have a workshop. Something we put in a few years ago. The board this year decided to do it again, and we listened to the feedback. We listened back and forth, and again, Mr. Palladino and I continue to, I call scrubbing the budget, right? We scrub it for that next PowerPoint budget review and some cuts. It takes about a month to do that, right? We move some things around. We talk to our auditors. Can we move this? Can we gap fund this in different ways? All these, administrative things that unless you're really a business administrator or a superintendent, you may not really know too much about. But again, that's why we're here. Then there's a final review, which is a week prior to the final budget, right? And then what we did here is talk about transparency. We put the proposed budget on this Friday. We didn't walk it in today. We did it Friday. You had it a whole weekend, right? So the numbers were there. Very transparent. And now we're here tonight. Next slide. So we talked about this a little bit, and I said, it's important to put this on here. We talked about historical context, right? We talked about some historical context. I mentioned that the past boards, the past township budgets went down, right? And how did that affect us? How did we get to where we are? Well, I got here 2015, which was 2014-2015 school year, and in that school year, the governor allowed you to move to a November election and no budget vote, as long as you kept your expenses under 2%. I'm sorry, your increases under 2% plus adjustments. There's certain adjustments for healthcare, enrollments, et cetera, okay? But here's a 5-year all right? And then it went into a back room, because that's what used to happen, and the council and the board got together sometimes they got along, sometimes they didn't, and sometimes they cut budgets. So this was a really interesting thing. So first of all, Mr. Palladino and I kind of agree that some of the numbers with 2007, 2008, 2009 that we could find, I'm not really sure how those budgets shook out the way they did. So it's too long ago, I can't really worry about it. But what we've been looking at for the past month, because the board was asking some questions, some really good questions, right? How did this all happen? I can't tell you, I wasn't here. I don't know what the reasons were. I don't know why they cut. Just like when we talk about School 1 property, I don't know why back in the day it was given or not. I mean, was there politics involved? Maybe. Was there expenses involved? Maybe. I don't know. So I don't know what's behind all this, but I can tell you, this is the truth. This happened. All right, so you see for all those years there were budget votes. And what was interesting is the first year, the levy was cut $814,000 and $814.5. Okay. And then the second year, the board had to increase taxes by 4%. And that proves a point here. Sometimes when you make cuts, and you have to make up for those cuts, the next year is even worse, right? So they went from 0 to 4%. Then we had 2 zeros. Right? And then we had a real interesting year, 2013, 2014, where the board asked for $2 million, and the vote went down, and the town's like, no, you don't need $2 million. We're going to cut it $700,000. And guess what? You went into deficit. So this is only 5 years. It's difficult to go back because a lot of that data was either missing or, I'm sure at some point somebody has it somewhere in a file cabinet. But this is the reality. And at 2013, 2014, right when I basically got here a year later, we were $21 million under adequacy and in deficit. That's a problem, right? So we're talking now, we're looking at 10 years now, right? And we're still catching up. You'll see one of the slides later. We're still catching up. We're doing the best we can. And this right now, it's no one's fault why it happened. But if you really think about compounding and all these different things, this is not helpful. It's not. It's not helpful because everything goes up. Now, I made a note on the bottom because I know everybody's going to be looking into this over the next couple of weeks, but the operating budgets continued to grow. That's a big thing here. Look at these budgets, the revenues. Yeah, we got more aid, we got more of those things, but we're talking about tax levy because the tax levy, don't forget, makes up the difference, right? And that's what we really care about, right? The tax levy. If we get more state aid, you should be happy about that. Like I said, somebody else was going to get it. We got it here for Belleville, the Belleville community. All right, next slide. That's a good slide. Here are our goals again. The employment and contractual obligations are a major part of the budget, all right? I'm not going to read all of these, but some of the big things here, again, district's curricular needs. You'll see a new word that I'm trying to float around out there now called STREAM instead of STEAM. It includes robotics. Robotics becoming a major push, obviously, and we were kind of ahead of the game with that. Our Belleville Bridge Academy, some of the capital reserve funds that we still need. We're still growing that preschool universe a little bit more. We have a little bit more room. We're trying to get to 100%. We'll be over 90% next year. And then, of course, we have a big push to sustainability. We have a lot of these solar projects. Now we have wind projects. We're actually still working on a very large wind turbine. Hopefully that will totally generate enough, will generate enough total energy so that School 9 could be completely off the grid. That's something that we're looking to do for sustainable projects. But these are still new projects, so we're not realizing any of these revenues yet, okay? These are fairly new, so we're not seeing like a big savings yet. It'll come, but it's not happening right now. Next slide, Jeff. So let's talk about enrollment. Here's another few slides that might shake the tree a little bit, but it's time to talk about it. So HEC, or Hornblower Early Education Center, and Sandy Lane make up our bulk of our preschool population right now, which is 525 students. The preschool universe right now is 86.7%. That's amazing. That's amazing that when I got here, we were under 10%. That means 10% of our kids went to preschool. Right? Now we're at that number. It's just an incredible thing in a few years. Mr. Vargas did a great job. Next slide. Here's something really interesting. The red numbers indicate what the enrollment was at those particular schools on March 31st. The black number is the October 15th report that all our aid is based on. Okay? So you could see some of these changes, and I have a better slide for you. It's a little smaller, so we will post this probably tomorrow so you get to see it. But again, our entire push to Power School is this reason right here. So I can use a lot of the geophysical and different GIS data and stuff like that, mapping, so we can make sure that all of our kids and all their families are taken care of, and we have the right amount of students and the right amount of teachers in the right places. So we see one or two schools went down a little bit. Some went up pretty large number. When I first got here, School 9, I think School 9 was under 100 students, maybe. So you see some of that growth. But the next slide's really incredible. I'm sorry, not this slide, but here's the middle school and the high school enrollment. Okay, high school has a nice jump. And we were talking before how we usually have an in and an out, but we don't see that anymore. We don't see an in and out. We see an in and a stay. All right, and we're trying to work with the township on this with a couple of different things with our re-registration, okay? So here's a really important slide. These are our enrollment increases. So we have building enrollment, who is physically in the buildings, and then we have overall enrollment, charter schools, anybody that we're responsible for, okay? The percent increase just in 6 months is 4% from September, 4% increase. Okay? There's not an in and an out. It's a stay. All right? Overall, we're at 5.5%. Those are real numbers, okay? Those are pre-K through 12 numbers. But here's the interesting thing, because certain people in the town are talking about, well, that's because your pre-K expanded. No. The pre-K numbers are set, right? 15 kids per class, et cetera, et cetera. There is no expansion of pre-K there's no increase in pre-K unless we create a new room, right? If 10 kids move in the third grade, it doesn't matter. They have to go to third grade, all right? And we're having a lot of domicile situations now in town. We have a lot of people coming to this town to live here, and then we'll talk about something in a minute, which are less than that. So the normal assumptions that we do every year are here. They're projecting for us a state of 4.10 growth increase over last year. So we're there already. We're there already. We're only halfway, a little more than halfway through, right? So we're right on the money. And the data shows that we're at 0.67% a month so far of an increase. So what does that mean overall? Well, does it mean more supplies? Yeah, stuff like that. I was talking to Mr. Rhodes today about graduation, right? And we said that this will be the last graduating class that will be able, God forbid it rains, to have their family in here. The next graduating classes are so large, we're going to have two sessions, right? So, I mean, maybe that's something you're not thinking of, but there's all ancillary things that enrollment has to do with, not just money, okay? So this is a big concern of ours, and as we continue to chisel away on the budget that's already been chiseled away in the past, what's going to happen when these are realized? Because I'm going to show you right now. These are future projections that right now are right on the money. I know it's small, so I'm just going to give you one. I'll call it out, but you can go onto the website tomorrow. By 2032, which is the current third, so if you have a third grader right now, when he or she graduates, the projection is that we will have 5,143 students, which is an increase of 625 students. Okay, so that's 2 small elementary schools. Okay, now, are there projections? Who knows? Of course. 258 of those students, they're projecting are from the developments. And when I did this, not all the new developments were in. There are only 800, believe it or not, it's 888 number. There are 888 approved units when I did this projection through our geophysical data and our demographer. This is a scary slide, no matter what you want to say. You want to disagree with it, that's fine. But if this slide comes anywhere to fruition, and we're seeing the pattern, right? I waited 2 years to look at enrollment projections, and we're getting there, right? We had to rent space to get offices out, so we got more classrooms. We try to build libraries back. Now we're again, at some of the schools, we may lose a library again because we don't have enough classrooms, right? Again, we don't have the luxury of saying, sorry, you can't go to school here if you live here. It doesn't work that way. And just because 10 people live in a house, you can't say, oh, you know, that's not how it works. If a student lives in this boundary, they go to school here. People living in houses has nothing to do with this board. Nothing to do with it. Okay, our job is to educate anybody here. Okay, so that's a pretty high number, and that's not all developments. Now, I am 100% for the developments. Don't kid yourself, right? That's future. That's taking rundown or light industrial areas. That's repurposing places. That's called growth. That's what you need. But you have to be ready for it. So my job is to make sure this board is ready for it. This slide that's now memorialized here is making sure you're all ready for it. Because by 2032, if there is 625 new students, where do you think they're going to go? So if you've known me now for a couple minutes, right, and you've been here at every meeting, you know what's coming next. You could figure it out. Right? It's the next thing. We need space. You want trailers in the front? They're not even allowed anymore. We need space. I'm just telling you like it is. So I'm doing it now because I now have the data to tell you that this can be a concern. So when I start rolling this out a little bit, little by little, this is not, oh, he just wants to build things. And it's not what it is. It's a reality. It's not a bad thing. People want to be here. Why is that a bad thing? All right, Jeff. Jeff's doing a great job, everybody. Jeff Parapato, thank you. All right. School level goals. Obviously expand the core mission. We have a lot of different programs still. Culinary Academy, public safety. On the agenda tonight, Mr. Lipo's here. He's doing an incredible job, Mr. Lipo. Partner up with some labor unions. We're doing a lot of apprenticeships programs now. We're trying to think about every possible avenue for every kid to get to, especially post-COVID. Especially post-COVID, you know. Things have changed. Whether you like it or not, they've changed. Some kids that were in college and then graduated during the post-COVID era haven't even been into a working environment yet. They're working from home. They don't even know what it's like, right? So it's just different out there now. We want to maintain the high standards. There's technology initiatives that we want. Continue the RTI. We'll talk about that in a second. And we need to enhance our security measures. We continue to get programs, and we can continue to enhance our security here the best we can, because look what just happened a few weeks ago again. It's happening all over, right? And I said it last week. You know, I have 4 kids myself, and yeah, their math scores are important. All that stuff's important. I get it. But when my wife and I drop them off or they take the bus, I want to make sure they're coming home and they're safe. There's nothing else that's more important. right? So that is something that this board has always supported us on, and we appreciate it, and it's something that moving forward we're going to continue to do. Next slide, Jeff. Special education goals. You know, we're doing a great job. We picked up, I think, $120,000 in tuition this year. $120,000 in tuition this year. That's great. We want to do more. We're talking about possibly a 21 and beyond program, right, to maybe pick up some more revenue. We're looking at revenue streams, right? I know Mr. Klein's working hard on that one. But again, as we're identifying students with more needs, right, we need more programs. It's the way it is. And there are some students that we just can't help here, and they have to go out of district. It is what it is, right? And sometimes you have to project for these things, because if you don't, and someone moves into town and is severely handicapped or needs some kind of, you know, accommodation, and we don't have it in the budget, you got to take it from somewhere, right? They don't get the governor doesn't come down and hand you a check and say, here's for the extra student. It doesn't happen. All right, so next slide, please. And to continue that, you know, least restricted environment, we have an incredible autism and extended school year program, and we're going to continue those revenue sources. All right, so this is Jeff's area with technology goals, right? We have that core mission. We want state-of-the-art instructional administrative technology. Technology is not something that you can say, we'll do this 10 years from now. We all know this. People, when I first was an administrator back in the 90s, this is what we did. No, you can't use that. No, there's no such thing as Apple, all these things, right? And then what happens? And then by the time you make a decision, the thing's outdated, like, you know. So we like using lease programs so that we can constantly renew new initiatives, right? It's easier that way, lease with a $1 buy at the end. We're one of the only school districts, K-12, in the country, I would argue, that has anatomage tables. And if you don't know what those are, you know, some of our kids, maybe we'll do a little presentation with some of our kids. You know, it was spotlighted a couple of times already. Just incredible stuff for our medical academy students and some of our students in some of the AP classes. Our new STEM lab, which is basically right down the hall here. And like I talked about, stream programs that are coming up. The technology department right now is like a PD center for parents, right? You can't get on your computer, you're having an issue with your kid's computer, you come by, they have a Genius bar there, you sit down, they teach you all these things that you can utilize, and guess what? There's parents in there all the time. But that's right down here too. So we, again, created more access, more availability, more transparency to all these things. You have a problem, you call the tech department, they say, hey, come on down, someone's there. Next. Facilities goals, okay? HVAC, major project coming up. IPM is integrated pest management. Do we have mice here? Yes, yes we do. I don't know how else to say that, but everybody does. So there's an integrated pest management policy that takes care of that. Lead, we were way on top of that with the water department here. You know, they do an incredible job helping us test for that. We were way ahead of the regular testing. Same thing with air quality. We do air quality testing all the time. Not when we have to, we do it all the time to make sure our teachers and our kids are safe. And then environmental testing. We've done a lot of that with a lot of the new facilities we've opened up. Mr. Palladino and I are like environmental experts now, I think, with all this stuff. Preventive maintenance programs, right, which was an issue here. While we needed the referendum, things weren't maintained, right? When I got here, a lot of things were end of life, which is not a good sign. Improvement projects with outdoor spaces in the middle school annex and offices, right? Trying to move people into those offices out of some of the other buildings that we've had. We're getting some success with that. The middle school parking deck area, which is a shared service with the town, which I'll talk about in a minute. Playground projects, I promise you, I shouldn't say that because who knows what's going to happen, but I'm going to promise you anyway, are happening soon now that the frost is gone. But we were set, what did we say? They said early May. Early May starts, so all the elementary schools will have playgrounds. That's happening this year. An environmental lab that we've been talking about trying to tie in down by the river. Again, some you know, opportunities for our students because we have Rutgers and whatnot, which goes along with the horticultural lab. It's the greenhouse being built, the big greenhouse by one of the new properties that the Life Skills program is in. It's in the backyard there, and we're going to really work on some of those things with food to table and also the horticultural side of the medicinal piece of all that. Wind turbine project I talked about, a bus depot we're trying to finish so that we don't have to lease St. Peter's parking lot anymore, so we have our own bus depot to store our buses, the lighting upgrades at all the schools, and electric car and bus stations. Electric bus we had about, what, 3 years ago now? It's still not here. So we tried, but we were one of the first districts to do that. All right, Jeff. Excuse me. Some more highlights here: continued building improvements, middle school expansion project. The contractual obligations, there's some contracts that are up, okay? It's no secret that the teachers and the paras and the bus drivers are all negotiating now. This budget has no program cuts in it. There's new classroom furniture for the high school, including places for files and stuff like that, just so everybody's aware. We didn't take all that access away from you, but some of this is just not conducive to the new learning. It's very old, and we had opportunity to start with the high school first, because we know that every student is at some point going to be at the high school. Middle school will be next. The ESL program, we talked to the board about a new initiative coming through tonight where we're going to have possibly an ESL welcome center for parents. Our ESL numbers are very high. So again, we want to make sure that those individuals and those families get the proper direction and proper welcome here. So that's one thing. We want to enhance that program. Maintain the multi-tiered system and the RTI, the response to interventions, which have been working out incredibly. If you have students in the districts, you've seen some of that. You've seen something called Star Renaissance. Okay, look at some of their growth. Their growth is what we're talking about, not the overall aggregate. Keep talking about that. And then again, expand STEM and STEAM and stuff. We're getting there. Hold on. Oh, shared service agreements. A lot of buzz about this. We're looking to do 4. We did one already, which was approved in June. You can look on the agenda. That's for the middle school annex and parking deck. Just a little bit more about that. I know we really didn't talk much about it, but there'll be some offices down in the basement. Hopefully they'll be shared with the town. The township's going to use, if things come to fruition with the re-registration idea that we put together as a board and a municipality. So they'll be using those spaces for the township, plus some other spaces there. And then the parking deck, right? During the day, we're going to utilize it to park our teachers and our visitors, et cetera. There's going to be a field on the top for gym and for recreation stuff that the town can use as well. And then underneath, we're not really sure if we're going to rent out spaces during the day for people that are going to, some of the restaurants or the shops, et cetera, whether it's metered and stuff like that. We're still kind of working on that, but we know it's going to be a revenue source for the board, which again, all helps out because it's all one bucket, right? Technology, we're looking to do a shared service agreement in technology where we have, as a combined unit, the technology team run by Mr. Parapato would also service the council area over there. We're already filming their stuff and everything. So it just makes sense, right? Because what we want to do, the mission is to try to offset some of the costs, right? Safety services, as we talk about security budget, we have a nice field in the back that 99% of our kids use. It's utilized by our kids. So, we don't have an issue helping out with that. We have a safety services vehicle that roams the day, around in the day, make sure it goes from site to site. So this would now just include all of the extracurricular sites at night, Clearman Field, the field here, I guess some of the pickleball courts and some of the other places that are going to be coming up. So that's a shared service piece, so that we all take the, we all hire from the same lot, et cetera. And then recreation, we piloted that for a season. It worked out great. I know there are a lot of rumors flying around, but again, it was really about a top-down scheduling thing, and it just worked out really smoothly. So just want to take away the cultural affairs piece of that. That would be for the township, with all of their things, their bunny hunt and all that other stuff. But it makes sense that the town has to ask us for scheduling. It doesn't make any sense. So it just really doesn't. I don't know. That's probably, in my opinion, that's like the easiest agreement there. So that's just coming up. All right. So the administrative costs still are $41 less than the regional limit. $41 doesn't seem like a lot, but hey, every dollar counts, right? And it's calculated by the NJDOE. Jeff, the revenue projections. Now, don't forget, this was all putting this together for the board for technical review. The board then decided to have the workshop, and you all saw these. These are the numbers that you saw. Okay, so we went at $102 million for the revenue projections. Jeff, excuse me. Going backwards, the projected general tax levy was 47.2 million, somewhere in there. Okay, it's capped at 2%, but there's adjustments for enrollment. There's adjustments for healthcare, which costs skyrocketed, et cetera. Okay, next slide. All right, state aid numbers. We got a $10.4 million increase in state aid, which one of the last slides really talks about, because everybody keeps talking about this $11 million. I want everybody to understand what a general fund balance is. So just remember that number. Thank God we got that. Thank the governor that we got that to try to equalize some of this, or we'd be in some trouble right now, right? Remember that statement too. Next. Okay, so the appropriations prior to that too were $7.4 million. Go ahead. They're all laid out here with tuition. And again, this will all be on the website, so I know it's tough to kind of go through all these, but transportation was a big jump from one year to the next when we first started looking at some of the bids. Don't forget, this is more than a month ago, right? We're looking at some of that stuff. We projected some employee benefits, because employee benefits and some salaries of like security, et cetera, we had to justify after the last budget cycle, because that's when we found out about it. And we made some cuts that we probably shouldn't have, right? So the initial tax impact that everyone has seen when we first got here, when we got everything into the budget for technical review, when I said, here, how much can we stretch the limit? Not something that's new since I've been here in 8 years. We've been doing this for 8 years. This is how we get into technical review. All right, it was 6.4%. So we were allowed to stretch out 2% of the regular tax levy, and then another 4.4% based on bank cap, which means that we didn't use it in prior years, and some extraordinary circumstances. I think it was with health benefits and whatnot that we used. So we were comfortable bringing to the board for technical review on the average assessed home. So your average assessed home here is $278. That's not how much your home is worth. That's how much it's assessed at. That's how much you're paying taxes on. So from the township, that's the number that we used, and it was $256. Okay? So now we come in, scrubbing the data, working with the board, finance committee, and we're like, let's start cutting. So we were cutting. We were cutting all the way up to Friday morning, I think. Actually, on the ride in to work, Mr. Palladino and I were talking on the phone about a couple more cuts. Okay? And these are the areas that we had projected based on information, based on suggestions, based on professionals telling us, or whatever it is, lack of communication at sometimes. Months ago, some of these projections happened in July, okay? And for most of them, we weren't really finalized until the last one. Well, actually, the land building one was April 13th was the last time we got an actual secure number on what the number was going to be. And so we made 500,000 cuts there to the rental and land building use, the lease purchase agreements, which was in there originally. I remember I said it last at the workshop. We talked about, the board talked about expanding the indoor training facility, right? Because it was so successful, we wanted some more property back there. We took 425 out of the 500. We only kept 75 in there because of another idea we had that we think now will come to you guys soon, but all covered through title money. So it might be some more money that we can realize at that point. School administration changes. We were permitted to now fund through the ARP funds, which people call COVID money. So we got an awareness that we were allowed to do that. So we shuffled some of that money around. Same thing with RTI. RTI is important. Mr. Palladino and I said to the board, hey, you know what? What's COVID money? Let's continue to use it. Let's not try to put it into the regular budget line yet. We'll see what happens next year, right? We'll see what happens next year. The money's there for RTI. We're going to leave it there for RTI. So we pulled it out, which is not, it's a little dangerous, okay? But that's $741,000. Security salaries, we cut $15,000 off of against our better judgment. We still did it anyway to show some movement on that line because, again, we didn't budget properly last year for it. We weren't realizing an increase until July. We also got hit with the new law that you have to pay for sick days. So I still think that's a little bit low, but I think we'll be able to cover it if we had to. But I want to be very clear, nothing's more important than your kids being safe. Nothing. And the teachers and everybody else, but your kids, okay? So we're not chinsing on that in any way, if that's even really a word. Special ed transportation, although we think the number we budget for is appropriate, we cut $10,000, which is a half a route maybe. All right, so if we do need that, we're gonna have to pick up some extraordinary aid for that at some point. But total, we said to the board, we kept cutting and cutting and cutting. We finally got to 1.9 and 1.95, almost $2 million in cuts from the technical review. Not from last week, from the technical review. Okay? So again, we've been working on these for a long time. When we talked at the workshop, I was still talking in technical review numbers. Why? Because the finance committee didn't give me the okay on this yet. That's why. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked, and that's how it will always work, regardless of who's standing up here giving this speech. All right, Jeff, here's the fun part. So here's your tax impact. $81. $81 on the average assessed home at $278,700. So if your home's assessed at $500,000, that means that your home's worth like $3 million probably, or $2.5 million. That's how much you're paying. You're gonna be paying $145. So we scrubbed it. This board did an incredible job. Thank you. I know the township is probably really happy that we went from 6.4 to 2.025. So we're at 81. I think that's less than the town. I think it's a little less than the town. So we did a really nice job on the general fund and debt service part. So that's where we're at tonight. That's what we're proposing to the board. We got a couple of really good slides coming up, though. Here it is. It's $6.75 a month. Think about it. $6.75 a month. All right? And that's what, if you're a person in the morning that gets a big Dunkin' Donuts and a donut, that's $7.50. That's what we're talking about here for all these programs, all these things. Right? Is it tight? Sure, it's tight. Everybody's tight. But if you're somebody that goes to work like I do and you grab a coffee every day, that's really not a lot. It's not. I could definitely lose the donut, trust me, so it's not going to be a big problem for me. But that's not a lot. It's really not. Next slide. So here's an interesting piece here. We've done this before, but I want to show you the tax trend up in the corner. I put a little bit of a visual aid there for you. Look at it. The tax trend's been pretty steady, and that's pre-COVID to post-COVID, right? So we're looking at the second lowest number in a 5-year strand here, and those are your averages on the side. So if you look at, you all here in Belleville, and I'm not disparaging anybody on this, trust me, because it has to happen. But since I've been here, you've gone through a home assessment, I believe. You definitely have gone through a water assessment. Right? Why? Because for years and years and years, people are like, no, let's keep it, let's keep it, let's keep it. And then at some point, the bottom falls out. That's where we're at. So you just keep doing, you try to make it, all right, it's the same impact. It's almost the same impact. But the trend is almost steady. The trend is almost steady. And again, this board did a great job coming to $81, which there's a slide coming up, don't worry. So one of my favorite slides, the below adequacy spending, because I always say, and I always get yelled at, and that's okay, we are doing more with less, because this is calculated by no one in this room. This is calculated by the DOE. This is telling Belleville that you need another $6 million in order to be on par with a school your same size, your average size, et cetera, et cetera. $6 million, right? $6 million. That's a big increase. That's like a $600 increase. And then we could say, our kids are definitely on par spending-wise. It's not going to happen for a very long time, right? But if you go lower and lower, like we saw on that first slide, 0%, 0%, cuts here, cuts there, you'll never be adequate. Could you imagine telling your kid that, hey, you're almost adequate? Could you imagine that? That's what we're saying here. We're saying to the teachers, hey, you guys are almost adequate. Kids, you're almost adequate compared to all these other towns that people will get up at the podium and compare us test score-wise or compare us whatever, program-wise, but way more adequate than we are. Look at it. It's the way it goes. It's a real slide. Next slide, Jeff. Okay, and that's the definition. I didn't make it up. That's right from the website. Our original 6.4%, we were still $4 million under adequacy, right? So now we're hovering at 6. And we're okay with that. I think we're okay. I hope the board supports that tonight. I think we're okay with that. Mr. Egan's okay with it, right? Because we know what we're doing here. We know what our kids are doing. We just saw these kids get up here accolades, going to colleges. We have kids getting scholarships and stuff like that. And then we have kids that are struggling. Sure we do. Next slide. Here's your historic adequate or below adequate spending. Again, the one before that, 13-14, right, is 21 million. Then when I first got here, it was 18 million. We were in deficit. We got a loan to get out of deficit. I still don't know how it happened. I mean, people are blaming different programs and people and stuff, but I don't know. It really was, you know, that last hit where the town cut that extra 700,000 off the 2 million need. The board was saying at the time, we need 2 million. We need 2 million. Help us. Someone's like, nope, sorry. Welcome, Mr. Egan, right? And I know he was here for other reasons too, apparently, but now those have gone away. But that really had not much to do with the money. Some of the overspending probably, but still, you needed it. You needed it at the time. So we were at 18 million. You see it dipped. We went back up in 1920. I remember that meeting. Holy cow, I couldn't believe we lost that. We lost some aid that year, and now we're back to 6 million under. All right, Jeff. Here's your adjusted projections, okay? The operating budget's 100 million. Local tax levy is at 45 million. Next. Okay, so 2017-18, we were at 39 million. So in, 7 years' time, we've done a decent job going steady, a little bit at a time. I know it's tough. Nobody wants to pay taxes. My taxes are going to go up too, right? Everybody's does. It's not great, but I'm confident saying that we're using it for the right things. You may not agree with it. That's fine, but I think I could justify everything. All right. The appropriations adjustment from SDA assessment, et cetera. Charter school payments are killing us. Charter school payments are killing us. And we don't even know what it's going to be. We have no clue. I don't know how many kids are going to want to go to charter schools next year. I don't know if a new charter school is going to open up. I don't know. But we have to pay for it, right? And yeah, it's tax money. It's okay. Your adjusted appropriations, there's a $6 million difference from one year to the next. Again, this will all be posted so you can really look at it. Any questions? Mr. Palladino will be available bright and early tomorrow morning. Give him a call. All right, Jeff, we're almost there. Here's my favorite taxpayer dollar slide, okay, from 2022. Obviously, we don't have the new stuff yet. But let me be very clear, extremely clear. This is not the mayor and council's fault. This is not the mayor and council's fault. This isn't Mr. Iacono in the back room making this is not what's happening. This is done. This is projected. This is a whole bunch of stuff. It's starting to shift a little bit as we start growing our revenues. But this is not their fault. But this is the reality. Most townships, it's much different. The school district gets a larger lion's share of the money, right? And this is how it is here. Municipality is still almost at 50% of the dollar here. County open space is still minimal, but, hey, we can't lose those open space grants. We got to use those. We're trying to jump on as much as we can. And then the library funds. All right, so here's a new slide. General fund balance, because people keep talking about it. You have $11 million left in the general fund balance. It looks that way. Mr. Bliss comes up here months later, or he projects out what you're going to have. And it's good, because you know why? You're solvent, right? You don't want him to come up here and say, you guys are missing money June 20th. No, because just like credit cards and your home and stuff like that, some things are projected out and are paid June 30th. Just the way it goes. Some contracts are paid at the end. There's some appropriations, stuff like that. So everything is accounted for, though. So the fund balance at $11 million, you have year-end encumbrances, like all the bills and all the stuff that we know that there's POs out for. But for example, not to use Mr. Rhodes again, but he has a purchase order out for caps and gowns, right? Graduation's coming. We don't buy them now, but we have to put a purchase order out. We have to encumber the money, so we have it, right? So there's $4.5 million out in encumbrances. Capital reserve, which we're allowed to put there just in case we have an issue, or we want to purchase something, or building facility, or whatever it is. All of those things are approved by the board. It's all there. Same thing with a maintenance reserve. For a district this size, it's a pretty small maintenance reserve in case we lose a roof, or we've had flooding in different places. That's not covered all the time. It's a reserve. Okay, unemployment compensation reserve. We have to put money aside for employees if they are on disability, et cetera, different things of that nature. And insurance recovery expenditures are about $20,000. And then unassigned is $1.5 million. So that's really what you're all talking about. Not the $11 million, you're talking about the $1.5 million. That's the free money that everybody's talking about. It's not free, but it's not $11 million. It's 1.5, right? And that's a good number. That's a good surplus, right? But that's the reality of it. It's not 11.5. That's why sometimes when you're transparent enough, not us, but the towns and the DOE put stuff out, and you really don't understand it because it's not like your house, and you're going from July 1st to June 30th. You know, it's not December to January, and the town goes from January to December. You know, there's a lot of differences to think about. All right, Jeff. This is the last slide. Last slide until we take comments. I appreciate your time, and I know this is a long one, but this is a cautionary tale. And I'm putting it on record, putting it in front of the board, putting it in front of all of you. I don't know what's going to happen next year, but neither did you, right? We didn't know what would happen during COVID. Nobody knows any of that stuff. But we, again, got a very large state aid number that really helped us stay afloat, okay? I am telling you, you could try to find the fluff, you could try to find all of it. There were some adjustments that we made because of different numbers we got from July versus now. Yeah, those are some different things, okay? We have a state monitor too, whether you like them or not, okay? There is nothing padded, okay? Nothing. If you think we could have less teachers and we should have 35 kids in classes, well, okay, it's a pretty interesting opinion. Talk to some teachers about it, okay? We got the yin and the yang. You can't want lower class sizes so we get better test scores and then have less teachers. It just doesn't happen. Or less space, right? So all these things, all these square pegs don't fit in circles, right? Okay. So I am telling you that when Matt and I put together with Mr. Egan these budgets, when we go to technical review, we know we're going to cut it. We're not naive to know that, but I am telling you that I don't know what's going to happen next year. And if we don't get an aid number that's good, right? And we don't get, I don't know, something happens. You know, we have 10 families with special needs students coming to town. Bus companies all go out of business. I don't know. I really don't know. I can't tell you, but there's a lot of crazy things that are happening, right? Especially in education, right? Did you ever think, if you've been following education for 25 years, did you ever think that a district our size couldn't find a phys ed teacher? Do you ever think that's possible? If you know a phys ed teacher, please give them my number. All right? So what I'm saying to you now, is when we're here next year, we may not have a choice, okay, because of the cuts. And I am putting it on record. It's not a threat. I hope it's not. I hope we go 0% next year. That'd be great. But everyone on this dais, everyone watching tonight, and all of you out here have to realize that if we're struggling, you know, we're going to cut programs, we're going to cut positions, we're going to do all that, but we may have to use that bank cap. So just like you saw back in 2013, 2010, all those years we put in there, we may have to go from 2% now to 5% next year. I don't know. I really don't know, because we probably should have went a little higher. But I get it. This board, you know, I serve at the board, and this is the board. It was tough getting them to this number. It's still tough. About an hour ago getting them to this number, right? But that's something I need to say, okay? Because it's a reality. We don't know what's going to happen. We didn't realize that all the teachers and staff were going to get a month off of paying health benefits. Congratulations, February is your month off. Oh my God, I saved $200, I saved $400, whatever it is. And then the next year, every month, now you pay an extra $300. Nobody knew that, and so did the board. It's a major number, right? Legal expenses, right? The easiest thing to cut for years was legal reserve. Legal reserve, oh, we're not going to need that. We were just talking about a lawsuit now we got out of nowhere, right? All these extra expenses that we're acquiring. We're trying to be transparent with that so you see it. I'm not taking a hit for it anymore. You need to see the expenses. Here they are. So that's it. This is a true budget. I think it's a great budget. I appreciate the board, Jeff. So thank you. Mr. President, I turn it back over to you. Well, actually, Mr. Egan, report from Mr. Palladino, and then for the hearing. Thank you.